What's up, builders? So today I want to do an overview of Microsoft Copilot Studio, which is the first enterprise-backed agent builder that I have tested. For those of you that have not watched any of my videos, I've been building AI agents for about the past 18 months or so, mostly using other pieces of software from startups and other individual builders. There's a lot of stuff out there, but I wanted to make sure that I had my eye on what the capabilities are for some of these builders backed by Microsoft, because as you can imagine, there are a lot of businesses that are already using the Microsoft stack for various reasons. I want to make sure to be able to speak intelligently and understand what is going on and make sure that I'm not missing anything or any particular functionality that I am seeking in the agents that I'm building. So I'm going to go through this rather quickly and just provide my opinion. Now, before we get started, I will say I am not like a SharePoint admin or a Power Automate like super user by any stretch of the imagination. And I don't anticipate showing you anything like super mind-blowing, but I do think it is important to provide my opinion just based on my experience. So let's kind of jump in here. This is the homepage of Copilot Studio. You can see here are all of the kind of test agents that I've thrown together here. Also, you can navigate to these agents here in the sidebar, create new ones. Your automated flows sit in here. One thing I want to kind of mention, I don't know why Microsoft decided to change the name of this from Microsoft Power Agents to Copilot Studio. I think it's too confusing with Copilot, which is another like premier product for them. And also just another side note, if I'm in Copilot Studio, I can navigate to any of the Microsoft suite of apps, but the same cannot be said for any other application. If I go into Copilot, there's no way for me to navigate into Studio at all. So does Microsoft want me to like open this page? I don't know. I have to type in the specific URL to get there. It just seems a little bit strange to me. Okay. Describe your agent to create it. Let's build an agent in 3 sentences. I ignore this every time the platform tries to push this because there's no way that you're going to be able to throw a few sentences in here and map everything correctly. Like I would rather learn the actual platform. So I would suggest that you do the same and just skip this. And even if you create a new agent, it does the same thing, right? Which is, hi, I'm Copilot. What do you want to build today? You want to build an HR agent? You want to build a sales agent? Let's go. Just tell me what you want. Skip to configure. Okay, let's get into the actual meat and potatoes and figure out how this platform works so I can build something of quality that is custom tailored to what the business wants. I'm going to back out of this. Anyways, let's go back. How do I get out of here? Cancel. Leave. Okay, we'll go back to my agents. All right, I'm going to open this one up. Umbral test agent. The Overview tab provides the majority of the general information from the agent, and I can hit this edit button and change this logo, which is kind of just for me, the name. Okay, description. This is very similar to your system prompt, system instructions. You're just giving some basic context to the agent, and you can see that I've just put in a few sentences here. You have an expertise in IT support and troubleshooting, maintain professional, adding things like tone, making it aware of some of the knowledge base it has. I don't think we need to go like too hard in that. General instructions here. You can insert variables here, which is what this fx and curly bracket x come in. We have power fx expression, insert variable. This is where you are guiding the agent with your action. So I have a little bit more in this particular prompt, which is review the query carefully, understand the issue, search the knowledge base. So this is how I am shaping and guiding the actions. And I'm even providing it a few examples here. This is all like nothing mind-blowing. It's very basic, common actions when you build this particular agent. Now notice as I'm scrolling on this overview, I've got this right hand test your agent block that has popped up. Hello, I'm Umbral Test Agent, a virtual assistant. Just so you are aware, I sometimes use AI to answer your questions. If you provide a website during creation, try asking me about it. Next, try giving me some knowledge by setting up generative AI, which sounds a little bit like weird, and that's because it is. Okay, I did not make this. If I click here, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. This is actually going to change the tab over to topics. And this topic is a system topic built by Microsoft called Conversation Start. So this is your opener, and this is the trigger. And if you want to modify these triggers, you kind of hit this double arrow. You can see all of the different things to modify what this trigger activates on. If I click inside of message, you'll see this is a static message block. Hello, I'm, and this is our first variable sitting inside this agent, which is bot name, which the name of my bot is Umbral Test Agent, which is why it says, hello, I'm Umbral Test Agent, word for word, because it's whatever your bot name here. Virtual assistant, just so you're aware. So one of the first things I would do is just delete this, because you're not going to open like that at all. And say, hello, my name is Ben, your IT assistant for Tech Corp. How can I help you today? And then we make sure we click save. All right, if I hit this little refresh button to start a new conversation. Hello, my name is Ben, your IT assistant for Tech Corp. How can I help you today? So that is how you modify what your conversation start is. If we come back out, we're sitting in topics. I'm going to circle back to this later. I want to go back to overview and exit this out. Okay. Orchestration. Use generative AI to determine how best to respond to users and events. Toggled. This comes toggled enabled automatically. Now, if we click learn more here, we're going to get some docs from Microsoft, which basically says if this is toggled on, they're going to use AI and an LLM call to determine how to respond to your users. If you turn this off, everything will go topic-based, which is more of a natural language usage that earlier agent builders primarily relied on. Okay, for most cases, I can't imagine turning this off for any particular reason, just because orchestration works better than the NLU stuff, which is why it's becoming available in more platforms. Okay, now we get to our topics. Something that's kind of strange to me is they've got a greeting topic and a conversation start topic. But I think this greeting kicks in if you just say like, hello, after the open. Because as you can imagine, your conversation start message might not be a greeting. So anyways, that's just a side note. If this is highlighted on custom, these are the ones that you can delete and add. So if you had a particular trigger you wanted to control the conversation with, you could create a new topic here and route to that particular thing. And if you click inside of these, you'll notice that you kind of get this flow chart, do this, then that, which almost mimics Power Automate and how this flow chart works. So this is what happens when the trigger gets activated. And we saw a little snapshot of that inside of Conversation Start. Let's look at System. These are ones that you cannot modify. They're built by Microsoft, but you can disable them. And most of these actually won't be even integrated to your agent from start without you setting stuff up, like sign in. You don't have this, I didn't have to sign in and stuff like that. Like you can set conditions here for users to sign into your particular bot to starting from. So you can kind of use some of this work from the Microsoft topics to get in here and do some additional things. All right, let's go back to overview. After topics is knowledge, okay? Where am I going to get the data from these requests from? And this is probably, I think, the best use case of Studio for these companies that are already sitting in the Microsoft ecosystem is you've probably got a bunch of stuff sitting in SharePoint here. And if I click on this knowledge here, it's going to say, okay, I've got this URL, which is SharePoint. So if I click this, I can see, all right, I've got this folder and I just AI generated some of these documentations, but you can say, all right, here's some project management guidelines from Tech Corp, and here's some human resources stuff, and here's some IT support instructions. So it's very, very easy for you to come into knowledge, click add knowledge, you can upload files directly, or click SharePoint and just paste the SharePoint link directly inside of here. Now, we'll give you one kind of tip. If you go into SharePoint and hit copy link, and then come right back into Studio and just drop it in. Did that copy not work? Come on, SharePoint, you can do it, buddy. There we go. That's kind of strange. There we go. Okay, now look at something in here. There is actually an internal folder structure inside of here. It will appear that this knowledge is linked. It is not. You actually need to delete this internal file URL and then click add. And maybe it's even this S2. I need to go look at that again. But if you're curious where to get that link without that internal file structure, you can go into details of SharePoint and scroll all the way down to the path and copy it in, which I'm going to copy right here just to make sure I didn't give you the wrong piece of information. Okay, boom. So, and I'm getting a warning here that I've already added this site, but you'll see that I don't have that internal file structure URL, that this is a different URL structure. Make sure that you use the right one. Otherwise, it'll appear that it's connected, but you actually won't be, which is, it's kind of strange that they don't handle that in the back end themselves, but it's a topic conversation for another day. Okay, so let me test this to make sure this works, which is, how do I reset my password? An activity map has shown up. So it's actually giving you an idea of what's happening inside of this agent. And it's searching through the knowledge base. It's showing you, hey, I have access to this. And boom, it found something in here. If this comes blank, you're gonna hit one of the other topics, which is like the not found one or the default fallback. But it found it, which it's, okay, reset your password. It's doing great. You'll notice that there's a lot of footnotes like attached to this from the answer. And that is actually Microsoft Studio giving you the references from where this document is located, which is certainly helpful. I have 1 and 2 here. It's the same doc. I just have it as a PDF and a doc at the moment just because I was testing some things and didn't delete them both. But if I click on the PDF, the doc is downloading to my computer over and over again. You'll see, boom, here's where it is. Password reset procedure. So that's great. It's very out of the box, RAG, giving you references of where it is getting the information from, which is great. And I think this is probably the strongest thing for users that already have stuff on SharePoint. Tie it in, get going. So let's talk about actions. So this is where you would do tool calls for comparative to other agent builders. An agent really is just an LLM combined with combined with memory, combined with tool calling. And if you click on add an action, you're going to get some suggested ones. This get forecast today is always in the Microsoft documentation. What is the weather? Where are you located? So this is connected to the majority of the Microsoft Power App suite. So if I type in like Outlook in the search bar here, you're going to get, okay, reply to an email, get event, look up some information. So this is the connection, because if you click on any of these, what's going to happen is you're going to get some config associated with whatever that action is. I need to sign in. Move this over to the side here so I don't do that on screen. Oh, this is because I need the 365. That's why. Oh, what just happened there? Oh no, there we go. That was pretty wild. Confirm. Where's 365? There it is. Send an email. 365 action. And then this is connected to your Outlook account and it's checking. Okay, now I've got it. So you go in and you figure out all this stuff in order to tie into various actions into Power Automate. And I think that this is probably, compared to some of like even N8N or some of the other tool calling like agents, there's a decent amount of friction in this process that I don't exactly love. And maybe it is just my lack of building inside of Power Automate, but going through all of this stuff and linking it, you can get there and it works, but it's not always the most simple interaction. And you might, I don't know, there's something that feels just a little bit off to me, but certainly this is how you initiate the agent to continue and make other actions and connect it to other tools across the suite. Triggers is if you did not have a conversational interaction, like to initiate this agent. Like I'm testing this agent right here. Let's say I connected this to Teams or I connected it to Copilot. Like that is a user interacting with this. But let's say you had a trigger. Let's say you had this tied to a support email address. Okay, support@techcorp.com. All right, you would initiate the Copilot agent through this trigger. I can click this. This actually is going to open up Power Automate. We can see what this flow is. When a new email arrives, you can put your email address in here. You can go through and adjust whatever parameters you want in order to initiate this flow. And it sends a prompt to the Copilot for processing. You can see that this is automatically filled out with the agent ID, and use content from the body of the email to send this directly into the agent. So this is pretty straightforward, and for those of you that are used to dealing with Power Automate, should be no problem. Starter prompt. What's a starter prompt? So this is like the suggestive bubbles that kind of sit below that you just click, and then it directs like an action. Like from this IT thing, maybe it's like, I want to create a ticket through the agent, or I want to initiate an action. So starter prompts, you can go in and write whatever it is. You go to title prompt for each one, go through. I don't really use starter prompts for the majority of my builds just because I don't think that they're particularly necessary or useful in most situations. But hey, if business asks you to do it, this is how you do it. Starter prompts. Okay, we've gone over kind of the basics of this. I want to go through like the good and the bad. Here's an activity tab, and you can just see some of me just like testing and messing around in here in these steps. And clicking on one of these is going to open that activity map to show you what happened in the particular session. Analytics, I've got to hit publish. This thing isn't even published yet in order to track performance, but you get your basic usage charts. How many conversations have you had? Channels. Okay, this is actually, so SharePoint knowledge being thrown in relatively easy, being able to ask questions off of it. The channels aspect of it, I think those are probably the two big ones. So SharePoint, and then this Teams and Copilot chat, because if you deploy this to Teams through Copilot Studio, then you don't have to worry about like the Microsoft Teams application world. And I need to spin this up in C# and write all this custom code and do all this weirdness inside of Teams, you can just throw your agent together in Copilot Studio, click this, boom, add channel. It's really, really helpful. And boom, you hit publish and it'll be connected. You can copy this link, which I'll show you right here. This is a blank agent I'm going to show you in a second. But this is, I now have an application and from Copilot Studio, just hitting on my left-hand side in Teams, and I can go ahead and I can ask it a question. Now, you'll notice that the name of this is Umbral blank agent, which is not what I have here in test agent here. I want to kind of put a exclamation on this particular topic. We'll come back to this. I'm going to go through the good and the bad of Studio. This blank agent is my solution for those that want to use the best pieces of Copilot Studio, but still want to have a little bit more control. Okay, let's get into the good versus the bad. Good. If you're already on the Microsoft stack, you already have all your security, you're an enterprise level company, you got all this information, being able to organize things through the data structures that you already have, it's a huge win, especially if you just have a very basic use case of, I'm going to tie some SharePoint documentation in here. I just want people to look up our company documents, just makes them a little more efficient. And then I want to deploy it to Microsoft Copilot or to Teams. It's a great solution. Studio rocks. For everything else, I mentioned it very, very loosely previous. I think that it becomes really ugly quickly with hitting the Power Automate flows, trying to bring it back into the agent, firing another action, like even like getting them to work, like you get there. But there's just this level of, it's annoyance from me as going through the different configs and trying to get the behavior that I want. It's not always the cleanest. And on top of that, I'm going to show you something that's kind of interesting. I apologize for this grainy image because I didn't save this conversation in a better format. Okay, let's say that you want a sales agent and you want to role play like a situation. Even though this agent instructions basically let Microsoft know, it's like, hey, I'm going to role play like sales scenarios. I want you to pretend to be the customer. I'm going to be your coach. We're going to go through this. This actually throws a content filter error, which if you go into the Microsoft documentation, which this is billing. Do I have that? No, I don't have that up anyway more. But anyways, basically what this is considered a prompt attack. So you have Microsoft that has this extra level of layered on top of your existing agent actions, and it's going to filter your responses. Like this isn't me like extracting prompts and information out of the agent. This is what the use case agent is built for. So having this extra kind of layer of Microsoft on top of this, it's just another thing to deal with as an agent builder. Okay. Number 2 is the pricing. If we look at billing, let me take a sip of water. There are 3 different Copilot Studio license plans. Pay as you go is 1 cent per message. You get message packs, which is $200 per tenant per month for 25,000 messages, which for those of you that don't want to do that math, instead of it being 1 cent per message, it's about 80% of a cent, which I could probably said that better, but 0.008 cents. Copilot Studio in 365 Copilot, $30 per user per month. So it's no surprise that Microsoft is going to throw a bunch of licenses on top of this in order for you to gain this functionality. But here is really nope, that's not the one I want. This is what I want. these message scenarios, and I'm going to zoom in. By the way, this table has changed like multiple times since I've started testing this thing. But one of the things that I want to highlight is a classic answer, which is that force-fed like message block that I showed you in the welcome message. That's one message, which is pretty straightforward. If you use a generative answer, which we didn't even talk about this, excuse me, there is a toggle for the AI to use its own general knowledge. So you can gain some GPT-like functionality if you have this enabled. Now, one thing that I will caution, disabling this does not give you like free reign. Let me rephrase that. Disabling this toggle does not mean that your agent is like completely safe. I've had instances where the documentation mentioned the word taxes. And if you asked it the question, how do I do my personal taxes? How do I fill out my personal taxes? It would actually pierce through whatever this additional filter is and give you the answer to that question, just because there was a common word in that particular document. So I would make sure that you still do all of the testing that you need to do, and also include any guardrails back in the instruction prompts. Like I would not just rely on this and take Microsoft's word for this behavior acting the way that you want it from your deployed agent. Okay, back to billing. Agent action, 5 messages. Tenant graph grounding for messages, which this includes you looking up SharePoint documentation, right? So this is 10 messages a pop, which is 10 cents for the pay-as-you-go. So you can imagine how quickly the cost of this solution would add up if you were using an organization that had 50 to 100 people that were hitting these agents on a daily basis, asking questions about your documentation. The cost of this fixed cost for RAG, for a general RAG lookup, that's insane. We're talking orders of magnitude higher than really anybody else. So I would caution just rolling up this Copilot Studio and pushing it out, and maybe not realizing that you could optimize this a little bit further. And I'm going to go through what my suggested solution is here in a moment after we get through these. Agent flow per 100 actions, 13 messages, and then the things for tool calls. So the other part of this is Microsoft is pretty much saying, we're going to use whatever we feel necessary from a charging mechanism based on the actions that you're taking in here. So proceed with caution. Now they do have some additional definitions of all of these things, but make sure that if you do deploy directly from studios, that you are watching your usage costs like a hawk. And they even give some scenarios of, hey, you have 900 customers a day. Here's the cost per day. So you can use these to help maybe guide some of your understandings, but 7,200 messages, 4,800 messages. Now, granted, this is a decent amount of volume coming through an agent, but for these businesses, that's probably possible and accurate just due to the amount of employees that they have in their org. So what would I do instead? Oh, one more thought came through. Oops, did not mean to do that. I had a few instances inside of here where I was building agents and I just started getting errors from the Microsoft system, and they just became bricked. They just became no longer usable. And my only way around this was to just spin up a new one, which scares me a little bit, especially as, you're trying to push these things online. Am I going to publish an update that just breaks the damn thing? I don't know. So I hope that that's just a bug, or maybe I, did something wrong on my end. I'm not sure. Trying to think of anything else before I move into what I think is a better solution. Oh, cost-wise. Because Copilot Studios has this fixed interaction model, the slope of this line for interaction cost, it's really high. Okay, and this could really get out of control really quickly. Now, what is this N8N on the bottom? I'm going to show you another example of bot. Where is it? Blank agent. Remember, this was the one that was tied into my teams. Okay, I have a name. I have no description. I have no general instructions. I have no orchestration. I have one topic. I have no knowledge. I have no actions. I have no triggers. I have no starter prompts. So if I ask this, I already set the password. Come on, you can do it, buddy. That took a little bit longer. Anyways, happy to dig in that for you, Connor. So what's going on here? So if I click into this, you'll notice I'm in a topic, which is all messages. I only have one topic. I've deleted all of the other ones. And from the system, I've toggled all of those off. So every single request comes in here and webhooks out of Copilot Studio. Here we go. And here's the document. Support instructions with a link. Okay. How did I do this? Why did I do this? This is webhooking out to an N8N agent where I have better control of what's going on. Oh, I didn't even mention this. Copilot Studio, what model am I connected to? I have no idea. I have no idea what model I'm using. But here, I can do whatever I want. I can stylize this however I want. I still can do footnotes and add where this is coming from. Basically, what this does is it takes the best of both worlds from the Microsoft and me as a builder and what I want to do. This is tied into Teams because of Copilot Studio. Blank agent. Hello, Ben. I'm your company knowledge assistant. I'm here to help you find information from our knowledge base. How can I assist you today? What is our governance structure? Based strictly on our company documentation, here's what I found. And look at this. I have an actual stylized message with a block. This is exactly what's from the document. And you can tell the differentiator between what the agent is saying and the LLM is saying versus what is actually sitting in my document. Reference doc, here's the name of it. Here's a link to it. Does the same thing. Opens to SharePoint. Have a nice day. So, what else can I say? What are some of our HR policies? There you go. Does the same thing. Search your company documents, HR policies. There's the handbook stuff. Here you go. Is there anything else I can look up for you? Now, here it is, blank agent and Copilot. Let's find a better question to ask. Here we go. I'm having VPN connection problems. Same agent, just deployed to Copilot instead of Teams. There we go. Based strictly on our company documentation, here's what I found. So, what this allows me to do, instead of getting charged all of this stuff in the pay-as-you-go, my browser is zoomed in crazy. Instead of all of this 10 messages, 13 messages, 15 messages, 100, instead of all of this, every single one of my messages is coming through as a classic answer. Because Copilot Studio is not doing any work on the internal side. I'm doing all of that in N8N. And I can connect to SharePoint and Teams and all the other tools in the N8N suite and have the control that I want of the agent to do things instead of worrying about trying to get the rest of this config right and this Power Automate interface. It's just better. It's just a better solution. And back to this cost thing, because N8N is open source, you're just going to host it on Azure, and it's secure and it's yours. There's no extra third party here. You own all of it already. And your cost just becomes whatever usage you're using on Azure from your server perspective, which is orders of magnitude cheaper than a fixed usage interaction cost. And all of this, the delta here, is just profit for Microsoft and all the licenses and all the fixed message costs for all the usage across your organization. So if you have non-technical people in your org and you just want to spin up some mocks or some quick things and tie some data to it and start talking to it, I think Studio is a great solution for you to do that. But you want a little bit more, or maybe a little bit more is not the right word. If you want a lot more control of what's actually going on, I don't know. I'm not going to spend the time to find that out, is probably how I would phrase it. Like, there's nothing in here that I'm like, I got to drop what I'm doing and I got to learn every inch of the Microsoft architecture in order to gain some functionality. And I know I didn't showcase a lot of like automation and tool calling and respond to this email and connect to Freshdesk and apply a tag to this ticket and route. Like, it's all normal like agent stuff. But that is how I feel about Copilot Studio. If you have any questions, thoughts, your own experience inside of Studio, like, feel free to school me. Tell me that I'm wrong and that Copilot Studio is the best thing since sliced bread. But I'm not really seeing it other than taking advantage of some of the connections inside of the user experiences like Teams and Copilot and not having to mess with spinning up a custom Azure application to connect into it or a custom coded agent. Certainly useful, but probably not the end-all be-all, in my opinion. Anyways, hope that was useful. I'll probably have a few more Microsoft-related videos just based on some of the things that I'm testing, like putting N8N on Azure, how to hash your LLM calls through the Microsoft instance. That way your prompts and stuff are kind of shielded, even from OpenAI. I think that's useful. It's a useful discussion. But other than that, business as usual. Happy building out there. Talk to y'all soon. Thanks.